Welcome into podcast number 5, TD Ryan Unleashed. Honored and privileged to have with us the DeKalb Police Chief, David Byrd, joining us this morning. Dave, how you doing this day?
Hey, I'm great because I'm in your presence, sir. I mean, I missed you. I truly enjoyed. Truly, I say that, but I'm serious that I enjoyed coming in for our discussions once a month because it gave me opportunity to address the community, especially about something that I know is serious and dear to everyone's heart, is public safety, and the ability to do it with someone like yourself, just so professional. You've always been extremely kind to me, and you're a great person, and so I'm excited to be back on the airways with you.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. You know, Dave, when you were coming in, I looked something up, and it's command respect. You know, we've heard that term all through our lives, usually involving the military. But the definition of command respect is to earn respect through one's actions, characters, and qualities rather than demanding it. And here's the part I think that applies to you. It's about being so worthy of respect that it comes naturally to people. And what does that mean to you, Neil, that so many people respect you in this community?
Well, you know, my mom, I shared a couple of things just recently with her in regard to some of the good things we're doing in DeKalb. And one of the things she always told me, she texted me back, she's like, man, doesn't it feel great to be appreciated? You know, and so it goes back to what you're talking about with respect, because I tell my officers, and I'll tell the public this as well. I'm just a regular Joe. I mean, truly, I am, and I don't want anyone to respect me for what's on my collar. I just want them to respect me for the person I am. You know, and because I do the same. I respect you just because of who you are. I don't need to see a uniform to respect you. Mm-hmm. And I hope most people respect me just from my character. You know, and Martin Luther King Jr. talked about that. You know, the character is more important. So let's be known for our character. You know, and I think to your point, when it comes to the conversation about people, the respect that you gain, it really is your character, it's your actions. It's who you are. And so I would rather people just respect me for being David Byrd and not Chief Byrd. But I understand that. I know sometimes, the uniform commands respect in some cases, in some places. It has gotten a little different now. The uniform used to demand more respect. Now it's a little tougher. We deal with a lot of different hardships now, even with the uniform on, because now we become more of a target in certain situations. But that's just the makeup of the country and the time we live in.
Right. Now, you mentioned your mom, and I know you've shared with us before, you were raised by strong women, your mom, your grandmother, and tell us about that, what that's like, and how you deal with women officers now when you see officers, more and more women becoming police officers.
Oh, I love it. I love it. They are extremely impactful at the DeKalb Police Department. They do a great job. And every time I get an opportunity to diversify our work unit, our team at the DeKalb Police Department, I'm going to do it. And when you talk, I learned a lot from my grandmother and my mother. I'll just be transparent. We grew up, when I say we, all my cousins, my siblings, we did not have a male figure in our lives for the most part. There were times, my mom had a boyfriend who we loved. Extremely impactful, helpful for us through the years, but we didn't have fathers. Our fathers weren't involved in our lives for the most part, and I never knew mine. So
did you seek that father figure out, Dave? Because I lost my dad at a young age, and I know my coaches became my surrogate dads because I had so much respect for them, and I wanted to please them. Make them happy.
Yeah, for sure. And basically, what I ended up doing, TD, is my best friends' fathers became mine. I learned a lot from them. They taught me how to tie ties, the things that a father should share with their son, I learned through them. And but I only bring that up just to say that we have strong females in our family, starting with the matriarch, which was my grandmother. And they taught us about integrity and being, dedication, commitment, all the things that are important as you grow up in life to have as you develop from a child to a young adult, and I just could not have done it without them because, growing up on the south side of Chicago, it's pretty easily I could have taken a different path.
Yeah.
It was there every day for me. The gangs were surrounding our neighborhood. We lived in gangster disciple territory on the south side of Chicago, so they were very prevalent across. I had a cousin, not a first cousin, but a cousin who was involved in gangs, and he was a high-ranking member in our area with the gangster disciples. So, it wasn't like that we weren't have some association, but we were able to veer from it. And it was because my grandmother and my mother, they did not allow it. Like, you steer away from them. Go play baseball. Go play football. We were very athletic growing up. And that's what we stuck to that, and it made a difference. But when I tell you, they weren't having it. They were not having it, and they were tough on us. They truly were. But
did the gangs respect you ultimately that you didn't want to join? Because I hear these stories that once you're in, you can't get out.
Yeah, well, they jump you in, they jump you out. So it's tough to get out. And I don't know how much they respected us. It's hard to say. I mean, truly, because they only cared about what they cared about. And that's the truth. I think I do remember. And this is a crazy story. My cousin and I were riding our bikes, and one night we was like, "Hey, let's just cut through this." We were going to cut through the school. There's a little gangway that cuts through the school, and you can get to our house faster. And probably like 7:00 at night in the summer, and we cut through and we make a turn, and there's a big gang meeting going.
Oh man!
I mean, it was probably 40 of them. And we we hit the brakes
Wow.
hard. Yeah, it was, look, hey, dude, we were still, hey, look, your eyes got as big as $50 bills, $50 coins. And he, so we were like, whoa, but then all of a sudden, like I said, we had this second cousin who came out of nowhere, and he's like, hey, those are my cousins, let them be. And he's like, hey, you guys go the other way. So we turned our bikes around and took off.
Never took that shortcut again.
No. I think we were 11 to 12 years old, and we made a wrong turn. But so that time, having someone in the family that was at least associated turned things for the better for us, because we had to get out of there quick.
We're talking to DeKalb Police David Byrd about various issues. Now, Dave, we started talking about respect, and I noticed a lot of young people. Respect is a big thing. Why did you hit him? Well, he disrespected me. What happened? How did the fight start? Well, he disrespected. Why is respect so important? And why is it so valuable to the kids to be respected?
Yeah, I understand.
That's a tough question.
It is. But no, I understand we all want to be respected.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hate to be disrespected myself as an adult. But it's how we handle that disrespect is the difference. And, that conflict resolution, which is a big part of why we have so much violence. I mean, because a lot of our youth and our young adults, they don't know how to handle conflict or resolve it, even more specifically. How do you resolve the conflict? And so they get the things that they get disrespected about are so small.
Right.
When you get into the totality of everything, like, is that really important? Or if you were to triage why you felt disrespected, it's pretty low on the totem pole. I mean, some guys, I've seen people get shot over stepping over people's shoes. I know it's sad, but it's true. Hey, he stepped on my Nikes, or my
And they see that
Timberlands.
as disrespect, and therefore you have to retaliate.
Yep. Or even he bumped into me and didn't say excuse me. So then all of a sudden, it gets to words. Hey man, why didn't you? Hey man, you just bumped into me. You're not going to say excuse me? That's disrespectful.
Right.
Which I would agree if the person knew that. And that's happened to me. I say, hey, and then if they decide not to say anything, the difference is that as an adult, we'll just say, all right, fine, we just move on. But sometimes the resolution is, hey, they want to put their hands on the person, and then a physical fight, of course, could immediately turn violent, especially with so many firearms that are available to our youth, and unfortunately, and those are all illegal, of course, because they can't own a firearm. So them being in possession of these firearms, now you got someone being shot and possibly losing their life over something as small as an elbow to your arm, as you walk past.
Now, were you a tough kid in high school, Dave?
I was a football player. I was captain of all my teams in high school. I was captain every football team I was on in high school. So, freshman, sophomore, junior, of course, the varsity and
So taking that leadership role
always
comfortably,
yeah.
okay. And I'm looking at you like a linebacker.
Yeah, I was a strong safety.
Strong safety, okay.
Yeah, and I was captain of my baseball team. So, and you're right. One of the things that was and it's kind of hard for me to describe because I always wondered how I ended up in these leadership roles. Mm-hmm. Even as a young, when I was young.
Yeah.
Even when we would play sports at a young age, 8, 9, 10, they would be like, well, you pick the team. And I'm like, wondering why do they ask me to pick the team? They could easily pick someone else. But for some reason, it just resonated. And I was able to, I started finding myself in these leadership roles on a regular basis and not really knowing why. I mean, and maybe
but getting
it was
more comfortable with it.
Oh yeah, I did, and maybe it was because something that my mother instilled in me and my grandmother. Maybe it was that, maybe it was my sense of fairness. I mean, I think that might have had a big part of it because my grandmother was a person who believed in that, like
Were you a goody-goody, though? Like when you saw a kid getting bullied, here comes Dave,
Yeah,
the football
I was
player,
a Boy
bring
Scout.
things up.
Yeah, I would consider myself a Boy Scout.
Okay.
Because I've never had a drink. I never smoked in my life.
I bet there was a lot of pressure to do that.
Oh my God! My best friends, my best friend. We grew up together. He passed away in 2018, but he was not shy about taking a shot of whiskey, even when we were in high school, and smoking marijuana, but he knew who I was. He never actually, I will give him the credit, may he rest in peace, but he never asked me or even pushed that on to me. We were close. We were very close. We were like brothers, so he just knew that.
And you remain friends, even though you didn't have that in common.
No, even more than that, we were brothers. I mean, I have two friends that I consider brothers. I'll be honest with you, we never even called ourselves friends. We would just say that's my brother because, blood. I mean, I know that even the only thing that separated us from not being true brothers was just the blood. I mean, everything else, the attributes that you would want in a brother, we had between the three of us. And I was probably that one that you would consider, hey, I did take up for people who I felt like were being picked on.
Okay.
And it's probably.
I always remember my grandmother saying, integrity is not what you do when people are watching, it's what you do when people aren't watching.
Yeah, and I just wanted to take care of the people who couldn't take care of themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of why I do the job that I do now. I mean, I know there are people out there who feel like they say, hey, we don't need the police. And I understand there's some people who feel like they can protect themselves, and that's fine. But there are so many people out there who can't. So then what do we do about that? Mm-hmm. What do you want to do about those people who can't protect themselves? So that's where we come into play. And at the end of the day, I think it probably started in my earlier years, to your point about sticking up, mm-hmm. For people who just could not stick up for themselves.
Well, there's a movie, I never saw it, about supposedly one night of the year where anything goes, everything's legal.
Yeah.
Why would you like to have a society like that?
Oh, my God. Yeah.
That's why we appreciate you guys so much.
No, thank you. We appreciate your support, too.
Now, I'm following on Facebook a story at the Casey store. Apparently, a young man allegedly stole some food, and then some quote-unquote, I guess you'd have to call them vigilantes, decided to try to stop this young man in the parking lot, and then it kind of escalated from there. What do you know about that, Dave, and what are we looking at?
Yeah, so it was one of those, it's a situation where I know I come on your airways and to ask, and I even brought up in my annual report that I gave the city council, and it's important that the residents of the city of DeKalb have a big piece of the puzzle when it comes to public safety, meaning that we need you to have eyes where we don't have eyes. And we need you to call us and let us know when we see things that are suspicious or that are unlawful. But the key is we want to vet those situations and we want to handle those. Now, in some cases, we will ask that citizens might be required to act other than just giving information. So that means if you see someone
Let me
young-
give you a tough one, Dave, because
Yep.
this actually happened to me. I live on 10th Street at the end. It's a cul-de-sac.
Sure.
A gentleman came down, obviously intoxicated, had hit my neighbor's tree and was turning around and was getting ready to get in his car and leave again. And my other neighbor and I said, we should stop this dude because he's obviously drunk. But we didn't want to physically accost this guy. So we got the license plate and we let the clown take off. But in that case, you don't want to get physical, right? You don't want to tackle this guy, or do you?
Well, it just depends. I mean, at that point, it was just, we only had, in your situation that you just brought up, there's only damage, we have like, damage to, you say what's it, a fence
Tree,
pole?
a tree, yeah.
So, we have damage to a tree and to a vehicle, but no person is being injured at this point. But I do understand your concern about this person going further, because it's obvious he was probably under influence.
Yeah.
And but my fear for that is that you don't know what that person is capable of. I mean, you don't know if he's armed, And
Right.
And I would hate for you to get ran over, because he's already, like I said, he's definitely consumed too much. He's intoxicated. So in that situation, you guys acted completely appropriately because you got information you could put out so we could, and when I say we, of course, the DeKalb Police Department or any other law enforcement agency in the area could put a stop on this vehicle and arrest him accordingly. Now, same scenario, let's say you walk out and you see a man beating some lady on the ground. Then that might be a time where you have to physically get involved. Now, I can't tell you to do this. This is something
Right.
you're going to have to make a decision on your own. Do I want to get involved or not? Now, that's a personal decision. It truly is. I cannot mandate that you get involved in that. I would have, at the least, and when I say minimum, the minimal amount that you should do is at least make a phone call.
Okay.
So, we at least make notification to law enforcement that there's a man who is committing a battery on a young lady, or or even another man. I mean, if someone's getting beat to death,
Or an officer. I saw that
or-
where
or
a
a
gentleman
police
intervened with an officer. Yeah.
Oh, it happens all the time. I mean, we have there. I can tell you how many times that there. Even when I was with Illinois State Police, I had a fight on the side of the roadway with a guy, and a trucker got out of his car and helped me, assisted me.
Really?
Yeah, and I really appreciated him because truly people don't understand this. I think they watch TV and they see these fights that go on for like 5, 10, 15 minutes.
Right.
Impossible. After 1 or 2 minutes of a fight, you're completely exhausted in real life. So he assisted me. He helped me handcuff him, and I told him at that time, I said, man, I appreciate you. Now, he made a decision, though.
Right.
He said, hey, I'm going to get involved. There's a police officer involved, and I'm going to, as a citizen, I'm going to assist him. And he came up to me, and his words are, sir, can I assist you? And I, of course, said, yes, please. And I gave him direction. And he's covered now because, he's basically, and you can make a citizen's arrest, you can. But there are certain circumstances where, like in this case, when we talk about cases, I don't feel like we need to have a physical confrontation over an item being stolen without payment.
Right.
It's just like retail theft. Now I'm sure you've seen it. Now, does it bother me? And I know it aggravates people to see. You see where they have these smash and grabs, but not so much to smash because they just walk in freely and they just
Just nonchalantly grab it.
grab clothes and they walk out without paying. But I think, there's insurance, of course, applied to this. I'm not saying, of course, it's not right, but I'd rather people get on the phone and say there's a lady in Walmart who is committing retail theft. You need to send her car. And if they walk out, I would just take video of them, get a video of the car, a picture of the car, keep the distance away so you don't get into a physical confrontation with them. If they look like they want to confront you, then of course you should, at that time we expect you to retreat. We don't want you to get into a fight over it.
Right, because I was just going to ask you about the videotaping, because a lot of times you'll see this videotape of an incident, and then all of a sudden the person is videotaping, they turn on them,
Yes.
and start coming towards. So what is your rule then, or general, in terms of videotaping? Because we want to get that evidence,
We
right?
do.
But-
I mean, those are pieces of those are elements of the crime. That's evidence that we can use against them. But I don't want you to risk your life over it. Truly, I don't. It's not that important. these are material items, and every store has assurance for that. But I also know that it's also not right and it's unlawful. So I want them to be held accountable for it as well. So I know I sound like, it's kind of like, well, Chief, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth.
Yeah.
But in theory, yes, I am. But it's situational.
Mm-hmm.
If you think you can get a picture of them, if you can get a picture of the plate without you coming into harm's way, then do it. And then share it with law enforcement, and then we'll go from there. Because once we get a plate, we can put the plate in our license plate reader system, and they'll let us know where that car went and the last time it hit a license plate reader. That's why, I know we talked about the license plate readers on several occasions.
Boy, they paid off for a lot of
Paid off.
Right.
And every day they pay off. Every day. And those are the situations where we can, make sure that we hold those offenders accountable for the theft that they occurred. So if you can do that without putting yourself in harm's way, then sure.
And Chief, you were talking about citizens getting involved. Do we still have the Citizens Police Academy, or is that still?
No, we don't.
We don't.
No,
Okay.
I think they had that prior to my arrival.
Okay.
I got here in 2021. Wow, it's going fast. It might be something that we might consider bringing back to the PD. I know I give out awards every summer for citizens who have done exactly what we're talking about today. Because like I said, a lot of times that Citizen Appreciation Award is given to different members of our community. Sometimes they provide only information, which is important. And that's, in these cases, is what we're looking for. Information, a plate, a color of the car, a picture of the offender, description of the offender, and that's fine. There are some times I've given out awards for residents who have physically taken someone into custody. Now, in those situations which we talked about,
Right.
If T.D. Ryan walks out of his house and see a young lady getting beat up by her boyfriend, then T.D. Ryan might say, you know what, that's enough. I'm jumping in this. And you might physically get involved, which I would understand. I really would. But that would be a decision that T.D. Ryan would have to make.
Right.
I can't make that decision for you. Only you can make that decision. So, but we appreciate that. That's why I give those awards out every summer, because I want people to know this is what we expect this from our community. But like I said, I never want anyone to get into harm's way.
Right.
So we don't want this to become a vigilante situation like what happened with Casey's. I mean, now you end up in a complete brawl over a food item.
Right. Yeah.
At the most. How much did it cost? $2, and we ended up with someone maybe in a hospital or even someone losing their life over a $2 item.
And you guys are wasting valuable police time on a little thing like that.
We still want to hold them accountable, Terry. I mean, I really mean that. Like, even if they just gave us a picture, we stop and say, hey, you stole that. Mm-hmm. I know it only cost $2, but that's not right. And we want to make sure we hold them accountable. What I don't want is to turn into a complete all-out brawl over a $2 item. I disagree with, but I do want those people to be held accountable. And that's for anybody. Anybody commits a crime in this city, we want to hold them accountable for it.
Well, it can be a teaching lesson too, right? Because
Sure.
I remember I stole the baseball from Ace Hardware when I was 12. But I was so guilty about it, I went and told my mom and dad, crying. They had me go back to the store, explain to the man what I did, and I think I worked it off somehow. I did something
Sure.
and I never did it again. But it was a great lesson.
The lesson, and the lesson might have been that. At the end of the day, I mean, that might be the whole outcome. Could be that. Where hey, look, you're going to go back and you're going to pay for that item. And that's what you're going to do. That's your penalty. And then we're going to trespass you from here. So you cannot, so you won't be able to go in this store again. You lost your privilege of going in this store after you decided to shoplift or take an item without paying.
That's great. Now, I got a tough one here, and that is,
Yeah, sure.
I had Jeff Kiker in here earlier this week. We were talking about the sanctuary state and who decided, I'm still not clear who decided we're a sanctuary state. Mm-hmm. But here now, you guys are local police officers. You have to deal with people that might be undocumented immigrants. And what is the policy of the DeKalb Police Department concerning that?
So our policy is basically the law that's already in place, for local law enforcement. So that's a law against us basically executing federal standards, so federal law for ICE, for immigration. We cannot do that.
Okay.
Now, we can assist them, though, to a certain point, but it's not local law enforcement's job to enforce immigration laws. And that's a law. So our policy just is to mirror.
So that's cut and dry then. Okay.
Cut and dry. It's cut and dry. We mirror the law that's in place for us. And so basically, you don't really need a policy for it, because the policy would basically say, follow the law that's already been passed for the state of Illinois. So that's what we do.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't mean, like you said, that you can't, our job is still to assist them to a certain extent. So meaning that, and how would that look like? So that would mean that, let's say that there were ICE agents in town, and let's say they could have a criminal warrant for someone. And then this person resisted, and then we could go assist in taking that person into custody.
Okay.
And then but then that would be it. We would turn them over to the immigration agents. So in theory, that's
The extent
if
of
you're
it.
looking for a scenario where we would assist them, that's one, something like that. But for us we would not provide information or addresses, or we wouldn't be doing that for them.
Okay.
No, that's not. That would be
And
against.
that's a policy for everybody. It's not individual officers making.
That
this
is
decision.
a state law.
Okay.
So we can't do that, and it's so for us, we know every officer knows that. They know that they cannot enforce immigration laws. Those are federal mandates to be enforced by those agents.
Right. Well, thanks for clearing that up. We appreciate it. We're talking to DeKalb Police Chief David Byrd about issues. Now, I mentioned earlier hiring new DeKalb police officers. I was wondering, Dave, you talked about back when you were a youngster going into the police academy. How is it different now? What would you tell a young officer now? What do you tell young officers now that want to be a police officer starting now?
Wow. So, man, I tell you, Terry, you hit a good one there, because I deal with I'm in the process, like you said, of constantly. We're in a hiring phase. We've been in a hiring phase since I've been here, to be honest with you, because right now we're at 69 sworn. We're budgeted for 75. So it's it's been a tough process. It's been taking us a while to get to fully staffed, and for a lot of different reasons.
Sure.
So you have the attrition rate of, we have officers who retire from the DeKalb Police Department. We had 2 that retired in December.
Yeah, can you mention their names? I meant to write that down. I didn't know.
So we had one of our commanders, Chad McNett. Chad had been a member of the DeKalb Police Department for almost 30 years.
Great guy.
Yeah. Oh my God, good friend of mine. We bowl together. On Wednesdays, we're in a bowling league at Mardi Gras, so we have a good time there. And then Sergeant Farragon. So we lost another supervisor, and fantastic man. He was a part of our SOT team, which is our Special Operations Team, which is the multi-agency SWAT team for DeKalb County. So he was a member of that. And he's just a great supervisor. He worked the street for a long time here in DeKalb, and a good friend. So we lost 2 of them, so that set us back. And,
Yeah.
And now we're trying to play catch up. So it's one of those things where you take 2 steps forward and then you take 2 steps back, Terry. It can be a little frustrating, but we're going to get there. So, but when you bring up recruiting, and I talk about this, about, how it used to, when I started with the Illinois State Police in 1989, boy, it was boot camp.
Did they recruit you, though? How'd you end up going in?
Yeah, they recruited me. I was in school in Louisiana at Grambling State University, a historical black college in Louisiana. And I knew I wanted to be a police officer. So I started taking different law enforcement exams. I mean, I remember taking Houston PD, Dallas PD. So most of the PDs in the South was where I initially started taking my exams, because, of course, in proximity, they were very close to me. Only department I did not take was New Orleans PD, because they didn't pay enough.
Okay.
Especially to deal with Mardi Gras alone.
Oh, man.
So I was like, well, you got to pay me more to deal with all of that, what Mardi Gras is. And so then I also, of course, said, well, I want to go, if I should take tests that would bring me back home. So I took the Illinois State Police test and Chicago Police Department. So, and then I got a call one day from a recruiter from ISP, and it was back then, of course, we didn't have these cell phones, so I had to go and use a payphone, and I called him back, and then he said, hey, he said, we want to offer you a position in our academy class. It starts in '89, in August of '89, and he said, do you want to take the job? And I remember telling the recruiter, I said, well, I was like, can I get back to you? I would like to. Can I call my mother? And then he said, son, we don't have time for you to call your mother. I said, okay.
Wow.
So that's what he said. He's like, we don't have time for you to call your mother. You either want the job or you don't. And I now in hindsight, Terry, I picture him with a list that probably was 100, 200 names on it.
Yeah.
And I was just a name on the list. I mean, he was just going to scratch me off and call the next name on the list, so.
Talk about life-changing.
Oh,
Wow,
yeah,
right there.
yeah. So I said, yeah, I'll take it. And I called my mother afterward. I was like, I'm sorry I didn't get to talk to you about this, but he didn't give me an opportunity. Now that changes now. See now, Terry, in the world we live in now, we're so much more flexible that we will tell people, oh yeah, take a week or something, talk to your folks and get back to me. So, but that back in '89, that was not something that you could do.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned your mom, because that was my next question. What did your mom say when you told her you're going to, and your grandma? When did you get
Yeah.
caught?
Oh, so they were excited, and they knew I always wanted to be a police officer. My mom will tell you though that she would have preferred I taken another profession.
Okay.
However, she knew that I always wanted to be a police officer.
Did you ever think about FBI or CIA or
No,
any
no,
other agencies?
no. I wanted to be a boots on the ground police officer. I wanted to be able to actually make an impact in my community. And not to say that federal agents don't do that. They do it from a different level though, and they're not they're not really impacting the community on a daily basis. And even as an Illinois State Trooper, I was working within the framework of my city that I grew up in, and I was still being impactful to the city. So that was more important than me than anything else. So that was never a desire of mine. But I will tell you an amazing story about my grandma, though. So the first day I had to report to headquarters as a state trooper. My headquarters was District 3, which is Chicago, and it was at the corner of Harlem and Irving in Chicago, Illinois. So I got up early. Now, believe me, my grandmother always woke up at the crack of dawn. She had already made me breakfast. I think I got up at 4:30 to get ready, and she watched me. She was staring at me, Terry, put on my uniform, and she just sat there, and she was just staring. And I remember, we used to have to clean your brass on the ISP uniform, so the gold they wanted to shine. So you had, I had Brasso, and I was cleaning all my buttons and everything, and then I got completely fully put together. I had everything on. I was completely dressed, and then she was just staring at me, and I said, "Grandma, what's wrong?" She was like, "I'm just so proud of you." She's like, I never would have thought that you would be a state trooper. She just said, I just never thought that. And I think now let me just say this, in that time it wasn't that we didn't have black Illinois State Police troopers, but there weren't a lot of them.
Right.
So for her to see not just the fact that I was a black man being an Illinois State Trooper, but it be her grandson, she was just amazed. She was like, I'm proud of you.
Well, think about all that she lived through in her early years, and to see that.
I mean,
wow.
you talking about someone who picked cotton. I mean, so she was like, wow, I just can't believe that you are an Illinois State Trooper. And she's like, I'm just proud of you. And, she brought her to tears. And that's when I was like, wow, my grandmom it was just, she just sat there and watched in amazement. You could tell, I mean, it was pride that was pouring through her, but it was also some amazement too.
Yeah.
She's like, I just didn't consider that, and it was amazing. She went to my graduation. Of course, she saw me get back, when I got my badge. And but then I think that day was probably even more impactful for her as I walked out.
Sure.
Yeah, she was.
All the sacrifices she made through the years for you, boy. Yeah, to see that.
Yeah, and she was the type of person. I got so probably in '93. I got hit by a drunk, a DUI driver at 290 westbound at Keeler at like 3 a.m. Now, I got lucky there. I definitely could have lost my life on that one.
Wow.
I ended up with a gas leak. My whole rear end basically got destroyed. I had got hit in the back of the head with the internal lights from the squad car back. So we didn't have overheads a lot. I had internal lights, so those
Came forward there?
forward and hit me in the head.
Oh, man.
And the guy pushed me into the lane of traffic. And I just remember getting out of my car and running to the berm of the expressway, and I ended up taking him into custody. He was in bad shape too. He was bleeding all over his face. He had hit his face on the windshield.
And you're on adrenaline at that point?
Oh
right?
yeah. I just cuffed him and put him on the grass, and then of course all the troopers, everybody else started responding. CPD, Chicago Police came down and they were assisting me. But I remember that night because we were like, well. I think my mom, we were just saying, well, don't tell your I told her, like, whatever you do, don't let grandma know. Because she didn't drive, but she was the type of person, she was very, when it came to her grandchildren, she was very protective, and she was impatient when it, so she would have been the type of person, she would have took a taxi.
Yeah.
She didn't drive, she didn't know how to drive. We didn't own a vehicle. So our family, we didn't even own a vehicle. And until I bought my first car. And but she would have gotten a taxi, and she'd have came all the way to the west side of Chicago. And my grandmother lived on the south side, and I was like, whatever you do, don't tell her. I was like, because she's not going to wait for you to come get her.
Right.
She's not going to do that. So we told her afterwards. She was upset that we waited a couple of days and told her what happened, because she's like, well, I would have got in a taxi and I would have been there.
Well, then sadly, what we saw here with Officer Muscle with getting hit,
Yes.
That must have really hit home for you.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because I know how easily that could have been me that night. Even, like you said, you got Deputy Muscle who lost her life tragically that way. And it's, those things, those situations are preventable.
Yeah.
And those are the things, and senseless. These are senseless things that occur, and they're preventable. If people just would do what they're supposed to do and act accordingly. We talk about drinking and driving and intoxication and being impaired, and there's really no reason for it now, Terry. We have Ubers, we have so many ways that you can, ways of transportation, means of transportation to get home. You have friends you can call. It is no reason to drive under the influence in 2025.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And we've been dealing with this for a long time, Terry, as you know.
Well, I remember a few years back when Coach Ditka, everybody loves Coach Ditka, but he got a second or third DUI. And I'm
State
like, Coach,
Police, Illinois
you're
State
a millionaire. Come on, dude. Have somebody drive you
I
home.
know.
It's like, come on.
Illinois State Police arrested him twice. State troopers got him twice, and not in my district. They were on the tollway, District 15, which was the tollway at the time. They arrested him twice. They arrested a few other members of the Chicago Bears, and that's one thing I'll give credit to the Illinois State Police. I ended up arresting one of the Chicago Bulls, Marcus Pfizer, years ago for an illegal firearm on the west side of Chicago. But I will tell you this, that's one thing I can always appreciate about the Illinois State Police is that they didn't believe anyone was above the law. And I stand on that. And I've always had that same, of course I had that same thought process, same posture, because I was a member. That was the only job I had ever had before I came to the city of DeKalb. I only had one employer, which was the Illinois State Police, and believe me, they stood on that. No one's bigger than the law, and no one's more important than the law. And if they commit a crime, we're going to hold them accountable. And it didn't matter what your financial status was, how if you were a politician, if you were like in this case, Coach Ditka or any member of the Bulls, any high-profile athlete, if you did something wrong, we were going to hold you accountable.
That's great. Now, I want to mention your recruitment video. Now that I'm a resident of the internet,
yes,
I learned the term production values. And you guys, this little recruitment video, I encourage people to go to DeKalb Police on the Facebook. Tell us about it. And then at the end, I love look for the light. Tell us about that, Dave, that whole.
So it was I talked about that, Terry, and we went through a lot of different, meetings and production meetings, like, about what we wanted that recruitment video to look like. And I didn't want to not, promote what it truly is to be a police officer here in DeKalb. I didn't want to, I wanted to be transparent. I wanted to be real.
They weren't pulling any punches, yeah.
No, I was like, I want people to see what we deal with on a regular basis, but but I didn't want it to be a negative thing completely. I mean, there were some. If you watch the video, yeah, there are times where you see some of our residents not in their best days.
Yeah,
I'll put it that way, and I'm sure they would have. I'm sure they would agree if, in hindsight, if they would look at themselves and how they were acting at that time, because you see several foot pursuits that occur. So that means that they're not basically being good citizens because they committed an unlawful act, and then they want the police to chase them and take them into custody, so they're not cooperating with law enforcement. So
I'm glad you showed the whole thing.
Yeah.
Instead of just have an officer walking down the street and people waving hi. Yeah. It's not like that, right? I mean, it can't be like that.
Because that's not true.
Yeah.
That's not a true. I mean, really, when you talk about what true policing looks like, at least in DeKalb, and any other city, I mean, there probably are some cities where you could probably show a video that way and it would be accurate. In our case, though, I was like, let's make this a real accurate recruitment video. So when anyone who decides that they want to be a member of the DeKalb Police Department, they can't say they didn't see truly what it was like to be a member of DPD. So we did show, but we also showed the good things.
Yeah.
So the commitment to the community, our love for our community, our love for our youth, our children, our officers. You saw officers in there who are doing, I mean, really amazing acts, and they didn't know it wasn't like this was a pre-recorded thing. They didn't know that a lot of it we took from body-worn cameras.
I saw that, yeah.
So these are acts that occurred organically. They were real. I have one, Officer Verdoni's tying a little one's shoe, but he just happened to have his body-worn camera on. He tied, but that's the kind of engagement that our officers had. And so I wanted it to be true, but I also wanted people to know that we were here to protect them, and that truly look for the light. So when you call for assistance, we're coming. And don't worry, just look for the lights, because I know when you're in trouble and you're in need of law enforcement assistance, that's the first thing you hear is the sirens, and first thing you hear is the sirens, first thing you see are the red and blues. That way you have help en route.
And you can see with the people, they kind of relax. They're almost like, they're on their way. They're almost here now.
Yes,
so.
You're on your way. You only have a second before, even if you're in real peril. Let's say someone's beating you up or even if you're, I don't know, whatever the situation is, at least when you hear that siren, it gets closer and closer, that help is on the way. And that goes for police officers as well. I mean, our officers have been in some physical confrontations, and the first thing they listen for are the sirens, and then you have the dispatchers who are talking on the radio just saying, "Hey, help us! Don't hold on, helps en route, helps en route." And you hear that with not just DeKalb, but throughout the country. I've heard there have been situations. I've been in situations where I've been in the middle of fights, and you're on the ground, and you're tiring out, and you need more, you need that assistance, and you hear that calming voice on the other end of the radio, which is our dispatchers who do an amazing job. And I had to bring that up because we're in the middle of TC week now.
Right, and those are special people.
Yeah, they are. But to hear their voice saying, "Just hang in there, we got people en route," and then you hear the sirens coming. Whatever the situation is about to come to an end.
So anyway, with this extra time, I can't get to everything, but I do want you to just shortly mention about the cannabis smell. Now, my understanding is when you guys pull somebody over now, if you smell the weed, you can't search the vehicle now.
Well, it hasn't passed completely, but that bill is, yes. So you're talking about the Senate bill, I believe it's 42, I believe. So, of course, there was a law that did pass that said that you could not, law enforcement could not search only on the, solely, so just solely on the odor of burnt cannabis, okay? So right now, they're
Oh, but if
trying.
you smell weed in the car, not
Raw
necessarily.
cannabis is
Okay.
different though.
Okay.
So burnt is one thing and raw is another. So raw meaning that it hadn't been smoked yet. But that's why the cannabis law has that you have to have in the containers
With the
odor-proof,
marking on it, right, yeah.
odor-proof containers. So then as an officer, if you legally had cannabis, you could, you wouldn't, officer wouldn't smell it anyway. So if you did it the right, if you bought it from a dispensary, they're going to package it a certain way, which is odor-proof. So
Oh, so the officer wouldn't smell it anyway.
you
Okay.
wouldn't smell it anyway because you had it. You purchased it from a licensed dispensary. Not from a black market provider,
Right.
which is illegal. I mean, there are licensed dispensaries that can where you can purchase it. But I was just looking at some of the so just to give you an idea of some of the case law, it was People versus Redmond, which was a third district case out of Henry County. Now it definitely is the odor of burnt cannabis alone is not enough evidence to search a vehicle. So that's that law. That's state law here.
Okay.
Okay, so that was the case, People versus Redmond, and it's out of the third district court in Illinois. But now, so there's another case, People versus Molina, that says law enforcement can search a car with the smell of raw cannabis because the current state law requires odorless packaging.
Okay, very good.
So that's a case law in Illinois. So that says that we can, because if they didn't have it packaged right, then our officer, of course, would be able to investigate that and see, hey, where did you buy this from? Because he could have been buying, this could be some type of black market cannabis
Right.
that was bought from a non-licensed dispensary. So now they're trying to remove that piece. So now that's what this case you're talking about now.
Oh, okay. All right.
So this bill would take that away as well. So now it would be raw and burnt cannabis would not be reason to search, detain solely on that.
Okay.
So basically law enforcement would not be able to search, stop, or detain vehicles solely on the odor of cannabis, and it would apply to, of course, anyone under 21 years of age, of course, is different. You have to be 21 years of age
Right.
or older. So this was, and I'm not, and I've said this before, I don't support this because this, we're trying to provide public safety to our community. And one of the things that concerns me is that if an officer smells if he smells burnt cannabis, he should be able to investigate this case. I mean, he should be able to detain them at least to determine if the cannabis was bought legally and also if they are partaking at that time when they're driving, because we don't want them to be under the influence of cannabis while they're driving their motor vehicle. It's the same thing with alcohol. We don't allow open alcohol in the passenger compartment of the area. So if an officer made a traffic stop for speeding, let's say, and he walked up to the car and smelled open alcohol, now that gives him probable cause to search that vehicle because he smells open alcohol,
Right.
which is illegal.
Which is legal.
So why wouldn't we do that? We're taking that ability from law enforcement to be able to do that. When let's say I make that same traffic stop, now I smell the odor of excuse me.
That's all right.
Now I smell the odor of burnt cannabis. Now you're telling me that I can't search or detain solely on that odor. So how do we prevent that person? I mean, so we have to build our. So I mean, at the end of the day, it's reasonable suspicion. But in some cases we can, and reasonable suspicion is one thing. Probable cause is something else. So reasonable suspicion is, hey, I believe, or I'm trying to build a case to get me to probable cause, which will get me to an arrest situation. So right now, I'm not for this. I don't support this. The Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police also concurs. We all on the same wavelength when it comes to our Chiefs Association. We don't support this bill because of the same reason. Like I said, public safety, and then the fact that we still have black market dealers who are dealing cannabis illegally. So I mean, how do we get to a point where we can, infiltrate them and
Right.
stop them from doing that.
Exactly.
You know, we're taking away a lot of our ability to do that. With
You know, I
this skill.
recently friended you on Facebook, and I saw a familiar name, Eugene Lowry. Eugene
Yes,
Lowry. You talking
yes.
about the former Chiefs, and
Yes,
so
sir,
you
yeah.
guys stay in touch.
Well,
like
we
that.
do stay in touch on Facebook. Yes.
We're quickly out of time. I did want to mention, though, that we got a breakfast coming up, right? The Knights of Columbus. You guys are having your police breakfast.
Yeah, on the 27th.
Sunday, April
Yeah.
27th from 8 to 9. Are you
Yeah,
going to be making biscuits
I'm
and
on
gravy?
eggs. I'm on eggs.
Oh, you're on eggs.
I'm always
okay.
on eggs. So come get. I say, hey, if you're hungry, come get some fluffy eggs from me. But yeah, I'm excited about that. We enjoy that. It's an amazing fundraiser we do every year, and our officers really enjoy feeding the community. So for everyone out there, if you're hungry on the 27th, come see it.
That's great, too. And then I want to congratulate you on getting married. And
Yeah, thank you.
I understand you had to rehouse your hounds, your 2 dogs there, but
Yeah, it's
good
a
place,
struggle.
though?
You know, because I found out that I guess my career choices really made it difficult. And they're beautiful dogs.
They are.
I was able to rehome one, and he's doing great. He's with a family with children, which is I really wanted, because really, I mean, it's really just me and my wife, and a lot of times we're both so busy. She's a realtor, so we're in and out a lot, but we don't get a chance to spend a lot of time with them. And I really want them to be in a more active home with children, really, because
Yeah.
I think they love being around children. So I was able to rehome one. I'm still working on the other.
I know they're not pitties. I love watching a show called Pit Bulls and Parolees. The parolees take care of the pit bulls, and then they home them.
Yeah.
And when they go to the new home, it's just great to see that.
It is. So I'm gonna keep working on it, Terry.
All right. Well, listen, David, we appreciate it. We're going to hype some more about the events at Hopkins Park, because the Fun Jam in the park. I know
It's coming
you're
up,
very much
yeah.
behind that, and I know you embrace that.
Oh
very
yeah, it
much,
started
so.
with us. So we initiate that whole the DeKalb Police Department. That's our we initiated that whole program, and we're very excited for it. Well, we got a little time. School will be out in a little bit, and then we'll have Fun Jam every Tuesday, and then on some Thursdays as well. So
Again, command respect to earn respect through one's actions, character, and qualities rather than demanding it. That is David Byrd, the DeKalb Police Chief. David, thank you so much, and I am honored and privileged that you were part of our podcast
I'm
today.
so happy to be back in contact and having our conversations over these airways, Terry.
Thank you, David, and look for the light, right?
Yes, sir. Look for the lights.